experts and coaches and therapists to support our readers and our audience through this really strange time that we're going through, the coronavirus. And I'm so delighted, to be joined by Karin Weiser, who is she's an international business coach who helps individuals and organizations to rewrite their stories and walk their talk. I love that elevator speech. Welcome, Karin. Lovely to see you.
Thank you, Susie. Great to be here.
How is the coronavirus affecting you? Well, what's going on for you? What's the impact on you?
Okay, well, I'll just start. I'm based in Copenhagen, so we actually went into lockdown about a week or 10 days before the UK. And I'll have to admit, it was all a bit of a shock, and it all happened within sort of 48 hours notice from the government. And I actually woke up with flu a couple of days later. And was struggling health-wise for about 10 days. And I couldn't believe the change in my mindset. You know, I'm a new small business owner. And although I've got a little bit of part-time work, I'm used to working from home, I'll have to say. So that wasn't the big deal for me. It just felt like the light had gone out. And what actually kept me going was setting boundaries. First of all, with the media, you know, on a daily basis, the numbers were going up. And I speak to people across 5 different countries, you know, friends in the US, the UK, where I'm originally from, and Saudi. And I've got a sister in Australia and an elderly father in France. And it was just on a daily basis, there was something new happening. And I couldn't keep up, and I found it depressing. So I stopped reading the figures and then just started talking regularly with about 5 different people. A couple of them were family members, and the rest were 2 or 3 friends here. And most of the time it was via WhatsApp or a FaceTime glass of wine once a week. But that really kept me going, and also reaching out to some friends when I felt I needed to speak to someone, because I live alone, although I do have a dog. And walking with my dog, and during the phase of lockdown, just changed now, but we have had the most beautiful sunshine and cold weather, but I've been out walking, and that's kept me sane.
Yeah.
And also, sorry, were you going to ask a question there?
Well, I think what you're saying is, what I'm hearing a lot is to switch off the news feeds, to have a inner circle of people that are positive and life affirming that you can talk to, and to get out into the fresh air and nature once a day, and to have walk with your wonderful dog. It's always a great way of doing that. So it's great that you're saying what I'm hearing from all the experts that we've been interviewing. You're sort of saying, you're saying how to do it and practice that's working for you. But and as you say, as a small business owner, it can be difficult to get motivated, especially if you've been sick or ill, to get yourself back on track. So how do we get ourselves back into kind of balance? How do we get ourselves kind of motivated and ready to kind of face the normal, the new normal working day? How do we do that?
Well, I'll tell you, I also found, I'm a very creative person, and I actually found my creativity completely dried up, and opportunities felt a bit like, ugh. And I'll give you an example with the email that came through to do this Facebook Live. I looked at it and stared at it for a couple of weeks. I couldn't do anything with it. It didn't really sort of go for it, which I'd normally jump in and do. So actually I took a step back. This was some help from a friend who's a massage therapist in the UK and had to close her business down from one day to the next. And she gave me that tip. She said, just take some space to think for you. Don't look at other people's newsletters or webinars, because they're all coming through with titles about how to deal with this situation. And I didn't even want to read them. So I did that, and I gave myself that space. And then, of course, at the same time, it took me a couple of weeks to feel strong again, and my new self, I would say, and just get used to a new routine. And I felt good. And then I really did just start focusing on one day at a time. Since I've left the corporate world just over a year ago, I was actually living 1 week at a time. But I just made that shrink a little bit, and brought myself back to today. I knew that I can control what I did during the day, as well as make room for surprises and the odd phone call that might crop up that you hadn't planned.
Yeah.
I took myself back to the present and today.
I mean, again, it's the piece around this is a moment for us all to press pause, and there's been quite a lot of discussion in the Psychologies Connected community all about some people are over responders, as in they're doing loads and loads of things. That's me. And then there's the under responders who just sort of want to lie in their bed and, you know, take some time out to create some space. Neither is wrong or right. It's just different ways of responding.
Yeah.
But it's about, I think this period of time is to kind of be able to kind of look at what we can control and what we can't control. And I know you have a fantastic exercise around that. Do you want to share that with us?
I do. And I'm going to actually give you a personal one first, and then the other exercise, which is adapted by somebody famous. But I'll start with the first one. And that was, I decided to create my own minimum list. And I actually remember sharing this. I post regularly on LinkedIn, and I shared it on LinkedIn. And I found, right, what's on my minimum list? And this doesn't have to be fixed in stone, because it can change depending on where you are. But I realized for this coronavirus time, my minimum list needed a good night's sleep. So I didn't put my alarm clock on. I just let my body start waking up naturally. I really incorporated a mini daily yoga session. I just got my mat out every morning. Sometimes I might sit and meditate for 5 minutes, but I did a few exercises to get my back warming up. And I just felt good, even 10, 15 minutes. And the fresh air with the dog. I was doing my 10,000, if not more, steps a day.
Yeah.
And I like dark chocolate. So I made myself have a little sweet treat to look forward to. Yeah. So, that was, for me, it was dark chocolate, but it sort of gave me a little bit of a routine, saying I can have this now after lunch. And I actually made an effort to reach out to people, also some friends who I don't speak to regularly, but I know I needed it.
Yes.
I'll have to admit, it was quite interesting. Like I said at the beginning, I spoke to the same 5 people, and those are the ones I speak to regularly. But I felt a bit miffed sometimes, where people were telling me they were really enjoying themselves. And I thought, why can't I say that? And these were people who perhaps were suddenly not having to commute for 2 hours a day. So I completely understand where they were coming from, but I felt a bit jealous of that feeling, to be honest. But nevertheless, I took it on board. I talked to people. And then this was a really interesting thing, that I just made a conscious decision and decided to believe and create an inner trust that everything was going to be okay. And I decided to think this was going to be for all of us. And I know that this might sound really optimistic, and some people might think, yeah, well, I know what the figures are like in some countries and the amount of people who are unemployed. But I've been through my own personal challenges, and I also know that you do come out on top eventually, and you do come out with something different eventually. And I just decided to hold on to that belief. And that was part of my minimum list, that it was going to be okay. And I've no idea what the timelines are like for that, but I just chose to think that.
Yeah, I think looking at your belief systems in this period is one of the most important things that we can do, is looking at, as you say, to have a belief system of inner trust, of, I think it's a really old Susan Jeffers quote, which is, whatever happens, I'll handle it. She was a very prolific self-help writer who wrote Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. But I think that whole idea of creating strong belief systems to help you through this, and maybe look at the belief systems that no longer serve you as well. So belief systems of, yesterday we were talking to a wonderful coach around her kind of her Buddhist beliefs around what works and what doesn't work, and how she can catastrophize of, oh my goodness, I'm never going to see my mum again. She was going through a particularly challenging time, and she realized that she's just making it all up in her head. And the kind of the goal is to really challenge those things that we're making up in our heads, and really stopping the ridiculous spiral that we can get into, that kind of makes us really, really miserable. But sometimes it's very, very difficult when you're being gripped by that to step outside of that. Have you got any tips for us about how to stop the, when you're really gripped by these really scary beliefs, to sort of take back, to step back and breathe and explore another way?
I've got another exercise to share, but just that question, Susie, I want to say is, it's actually stop. I think awareness of what you're thinking about is a really key thing here. And if you can change to, I'm a quote lady. I love quotes, and I really try to use them as titles. And I have to share a quote that I heard on one of your live interviews. And I'm saying this one to myself quite a lot recently. You interviewed a lady called Roz Savage, and she said, women.
Roz, just to say, so Roz is a solo rower, solo ocean rower. So she was such a brilliant person to interview because she sails across oceans on her own in a rowing boat. So the idea of being isolated, with huge, enormous waves and challenges ahead of her. So sorry, what did she say?
Oh, the quote was, women are like tea bags. They get stronger when you put them in boiling water. And I thought, okay, that's probably maybe not just women. I could say that about men as well. And I just thought, wow, what a lovely metaphor to use. And every time I make a cup of tea, I drink a lot of tea, and I've been saying that to myself, going, I'm getting stronger, just like this tea bag.
It's a brilliant example of using a daily habit such as tea bag to sort of build the evidence of a belief system that is working for you. I love that idea. Really good.
And that I heard that quote only 10 days ago when you did the live. So I'm absorbing titles or quotes or wise words that I hear from someone else and sort of trying to put them in my little, I'll say, toolkit, my personal toolkit that you build. But there's another exercise. I haven't done this myself. I've mentally done it, but I haven't felt the need to actually sit and draw these circles. But I just wanted to share this with readers for the last exercise that might be able to help them focus a bit. But it's adapted from Stephen Covey's Circle of Influence and Control. And basically, you draw his exercise has 3 circles, but this is a bit simpler and just having 2. So you start with drawing a circle, and inside it you write down everything that you can control. And this might be how often you check the news, what you eat, what you think, how frequently you pick up the phone, who you speak to, and then around that circle draw another circle and write down everything that you're worried about and you can't control.
Yes.
And that's going to be, well, if you do have an elderly parent who's sick, and to be honest, I have that. My father lives in France and he's not been at home, having broken a foot just before the lockdown in France. So I put him in that circle, mentally knowing I can't control this. You can't control how other people behave and what other people believe and what's unfolding in the news. You can't control it. And how people deal with their emotions. But, it's going to be a personal exercise. And this kind of thing you can do as often as you need it. And maybe you'll have a coronavirus circle of influence exercise, and you might develop another one later in life when you have another challenge.
I think it's
put it out of your head and get on paper.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most useful exercises that we can do for ourselves, is to ask ourselves, is this, when we're worrying, worry is something that many of us do. Is it kind of the idea of negativity bias, where we're kind of scanning the horizon for threat? That's what humans do. It's part of our survival, ancient survival mechanisms. And then to kind of check in and, oh, look what I'm doing, I'm worrying. And then, okay, what out of all of these worries, to sort of write it down. So what I'm hearing you say is to write down in the middle of the circle all the things that you can control, like how you get up in the morning, how you go to bed at night, your exercise, the food you put in your mouth, all of those things you can control. And then the things that you can't control, about when lockdown's going to end, as you say, the emotions of other people, the welfare sometimes of our elderly relatives or the people around us. We can't control it. We can maybe influence by ringing doctors or ringing neighbors or all of those things, but we can't control it. And I think once you get really clear about that, maybe on a daily basis, what are the things I can control today? I think for me, that's really helped me through this time. I'm not really a task orientated person. I'm quite, more intuitive the way I lead my life. However, in this period of time, I found it very, very useful to have a kind of, these are the things I'm going to hook on to today. I'm going to do my 10,000 steps walk today, which will get me out in the fresh air. I'm going to eat oats for breakfast, which will keep rather than anything sugary, to keep my blood sugar level. I'm only going to have X amount of coffees a day or whatever. So it just keeps me really on track and gives me something to hold on to when I'm feeling a bit wobbly. So I think that is excellent advice around that exercise. And I think if everyone can have a go with that, that would be amazing. Karin, thank you so much for your wisdom today. And thank you so much for your thoughts. And these exercises are going to be really, really useful for us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Susie, and have a great day and keep well.
Thank you. Yes, stay safe and keep well. Yes, lots of love, Karin. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.